Quality is not an act, it is a habit. Hello, this is the Quality Link, brought to you by the regional network of standard setting bodies, which make up the CARICOM Regional Organization for Standards and Quality, CROSQ. Every month on the Quality Link, we present one national standards body, NSB, to explore, discuss, or just give an update on how individual NSBs are supporting quality of life and business growth through standards, conformity assessment, and the metrology.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Quality Link. I am Latoya Burnham, the Technical Officer for Quality Promotions at the CROSQ Secretariat. And with me this month is our special guest, Mr. Deryck Omar, who is the CEO here at CROSQ. Now, the reason that we have Mr. Omar on this month is because we're looking at quality promotions. Yeah, my portfolio. And what we're going to do is have a discussion about what that actually is, because we've been utilizing the term now for about 2 to 3 years, and we're expanding what that means in terms of the development of quality infrastructure across our region. So, Mr. Omar, you would have had an interesting discussion with Jamaica a couple months back, looking at quality promotions and its role in the development of QI and looking at quality promotions as a pillar. So I guess a good place to start would be to ask you, what is quality promotions in your view, and where does that concept for us come from?
Thanks very much, Latoya. Hi, everybody. Just trying to sound as lively as Latoya. So quality infrastructure really is a scientific terminology that refers to the development of documentary standards that define the quality of a product or service, and that contains measurement information in different forms, be it pressure, temperature, humidity, those things, and that's called metrology. And then quality infrastructure not only speaks about these standards of quality or the measurement standards as just described, but quality infrastructure also extends into the scientific arena where you can prove that you meet these quality standards in different ways. And that's where the concept of inspecting for quality, logging your results, testing for quality, sharing those results, and certifying for quality and branding those results come in. It's all science-based and objectively proven. However, there's a very important part of quality infrastructure, as we term it in the Caribbean community, and that deals with the more nebulous, the more esoteric side of quality and quality infrastructure. And that has to do with the whole aspect of marketing and communicating what quality really is and how it works. And also there is that intangible side of continuously researching the fundamental value of quality of products and services, be it in the product itself, in the service ancillary to the product, be it in the relationships with the companies or the product or services, or be in the quality associated with the brand. Those things are communicated, but they can't be proven, so to speak. And that is where information and awareness building through advertising, publications, or events, or even experiences come in. So quality promotions for us is this whole intangible area of communicating what is quality and quality infrastructure and how it affects your life on such a daily basis that you actually take it for granted. So quality promotions, as we know it in our region, really speaks to marketing and communicating what quality and quality infrastructure is, sharing that information, developing research that we could communicate to people of how to buy for quality, how to develop for quality. It's about educating people formally and informally as to their rights to quality, and it's about giving people experiences of the use of standards, measurement infrastructure, inspection, testing, and certification, and those things. So it's a very human experience. And it's not the physical science part of quality infrastructure. It is the people part of it.
Yeah.
And we thought that this is missing when we look at quality infrastructure in world affairs, and therefore we developed our own discipline of quality infrastructure being a socio-technical principle. And we think that is very important for the developing countries of the world, where we have to develop our own confidence in the quality of our own products and services rather than being told that the quality is good.
I'm glad that you brought up the issue of rights and the rights of the consumer and how that plays into quality promotions and quality infrastructure in general. Because one of the two things, at least there were two things that you singled out and posited during your presentation to Jamaica, and that was quality promotions as a tool for market development, as well as a tool for consumer protection. And I'd like us to look a little bit at that and how that actually, plays out in reality.
So quality infrastructure was there since the dawn of civilization, right? Because when people were trading, just generally, people would buy and sell on what quality means to you and how much you're willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
And then the buyer would say, well, let me find a way to measure this quality. If it's to say that this length has to be the length of the king's arm, or if the weight of this has to be the weight of water filled into this particular vessel, then I'll pay you this weight. So quality infrastructure has been there since the dawn of civilization. The thing with us is that in the Caribbean, a lot of our countries got independence in around the 60s and the 70s. But because trade pre-existed that, you would find that in the developed world, standards, measurement infrastructure, metrology, inspection, testing, and certification systems were very well developed. And the developed world then set up institutions in the Caribbean countries in order to reflect that, so that when we ship in things to the metropole countries, the value of quality will be attested to. So that we were given institutions during the course of our development that would be able to develop standards, measurement infrastructure, inspect, test, certify, and those things. But when the 1960s came and the countries started to become independent, the bureaus of standards that lodged a lot of this quality infrastructure naturally became our own. But they came with the supply of standards, metrology, inspection, testing, certification systems. So what the bureaus concentrated on really in the 70s, 80s, 90s into the 21st century was really promoting the supply of these pre-existing quality infrastructure products so that industry could take it up, so that regulators could take it up, so that consumers could take it up, right? But it was mostly promoting an existing supply of quality infrastructure products and services to industry, to government, to academia, to regulators.
But that's changed.
But that has changed now, because one of the things that we have realized is that rather than push a supply on industry or push a supply of something to consumers, the better way is to educate industry of the value of these quality infrastructure products and services, or educate consumers to the value of quality for themselves. So that way, what you do is eventually move from a supply push model to a demand pull model. So when the market of industries or the market of consumers start to demand quality and an attestation of it, it will cause the supply channels of the bureaus of standards to lift their games to develop better products and services to supply the market. And in that way, the industry of quality infrastructure expands, and we no longer become takers of supplies of quality infrastructure products from the world, but rather we can actually now give back new innovations in supply chains on quality infrastructure in products and services. So quality promotions is important in terms of making the market of industry and consumers more aware of their power of demand, and in so doing they will cause a demand pull rather than just a plain old hand-me-down supply push that we originally started with. And that is 21st century marketing at its best. Now, apart from the use of quality promotions for this educational sensitization, confidence building pull from industry and consumers, which is market development, there's also the other important element of quality promotions related to consumer protection that is very important in the developing world. Now, how quality infrastructure of standards, metrology, inspection and testing services and certification services work is that you have government, academia and industry putting products and services in the market to the general public. But between industry, government and academia and the public, you have regulators to regulate the products and services, or you have what is called conformity assessment or quality assurance bodies outside there checking the standards that are being used for these products and services, checking the measurement of these products and services, checking the certification of these products and services. So you have this protective layer of institutions called conformity assessment or quality assurance bodies and regulators between industry, government and academia and the public at large, so that the public is well protected when they buy products and services, in that they have somebody looking out for them independent of industry, government and academia to make sure that these products meet certain quality standards. And these would be the regulators and the quality assurance bodies. However, in developing countries, especially the new ones who have only got independence 50, 60, 70 years ago, you tend to find that the protective layer of regulators and regulations and quality assurance bodies not as strong as they should be. So industry, government, academia has an easier time in giving necessary products and services to the public and maybe compromising on quality in the process, because sometimes we're just glad to have it because we never had it before. And two, the regulators and the quality assurance bodies not sufficiently developed to really rigorously test the quality of these products and services coming from industry, government and academia. So for us, quality promotions in developing countries is even more critical when you think that the regulators and the quality assurance bodies to do inspection, certification and testing is not as strong as they should be. And therefore, by educating the public and consumers through quality promotions, then you actually now encourage them to be confident enough to buy on quality and therefore ask questions on quality and therefore protect their own selves. So you move from a case of supplier be aware in the developing country scenario to the better place of consumer be aware in the developing country scenario, where because the consumers are now educated and more sophisticated, they could protect themselves from substandard products and services when the protection agencies of regulators and quality assurance bodies are not as mature or prevalent as they should be for products and services coming from industry, government and academia.
Yeah. So what I am taking from this is that we have seen a continual shift from what used to be in terms of these are the standards for your industry, here, take them, use them, to now a system where industry is saying, hey, we need XYZ, can you help us in this area? So therefore institutions like the Bureaus of Standards and CROSQ at the regional level are saying, hey, we can help you in this regard. Tell us what you need. We'll help you more or less meet your market. And quality promotions is that element that says, in order to satisfy your need, you can come to us. So therefore, there is now that bridge between the demand that is there and the bureaus knowing that there is a demand there, and the customer knowing, the customer being industry, being the people on the street know that, okay, we can demand quality because these systems now exist in our world, and therefore we are within our rights to demand that something changes within our context. What I think we've seen over the past years is that the shape of quality promotions has also changed from a situation where there may have been an event here or there to now we are on social media. So you're seeing increasingly the bureaus are reaching out across the various social media platforms. They're utilizing websites. They are developing online stores to be able to sell standards. So all of this is a gamut of what we are looking at in terms of quality promotions. I'm wondering at our regional level, do you think that quality promotions is having the impact, or at least the kind of impact that we would want to see within, or at least reflected within the marketplace?
Oh yeah, I think so. Aristotle once said that quality is not an act, it's a habit. And quality is nothing sophisticated. It is really just doing something better today than they did it yesterday. And in our world, we would want to measure that. Because if you could measure something and codify it, then you can manage it. And if you could manage it, it means you could grow it and develop it. So for us, quality and quality infrastructure starts by just talking to all our peers or talking to anybody who will listen as to the value and role of standards in your daily life, the value and role of measurements in your daily life, and the fact that, as citizens of the Caribbean, we are worth quality and we're willing to pay for quality.
Yeah.
And we're not maybe as price sensitive as what we were before, in that we are a lot more discerning. So, sell us something of value and with sustainability, and we will buy it because we now understand, whereas before we didn't. And we now have purchasing power, whereas maybe 30, 40 years before we didn't have as much purchasing power.
Or as much say.
Which is important. So for us, quality promotions at the regional level is just really talking to everybody and anybody we could meet who has influence, not only with people they meet in an organizational construct, but more importantly, when they go home, they can tell their family, when you go to the supermarket, let's start reading the labels. When we go to the supermarket, let's start asking questions and looking at people's measurements, devices, to see if they bear a certification mark of being checked for proper calibration by the National Bureau of Standards. When they go home and they go out anywhere and they have to buy articles of clothing, they want to make sure it has good labels on it from a reputable source. And when they buy, machinery or equipment, they want to make sure it comes with the right quality certificates. It's so to us, by raising the consciousness of our colleagues in other regional institutions or with the policymakers at the national level who we interface with and things like that, we just start talking about these things, showing how common sense and how daily they are, and then hopefully they learn something, they go and practice it. And because they practice it, other people notice, especially in the home, and then the quality starts to spread, and then we build a quality consciousness in the Caribbean because we're talking about something that we took for commonplace but didn't know there was a definition to it, like when we started. What is quality infrastructure? What is quality promotions? So the regional level, I think we've trying very hard to make quality a habit and not just an act, like Aristotle was saying. And there's that two-way feedback of that with the bureaus, and then a quality culture starts to develop amongst us with the 15 bureaus and the CROSQ Secretariat, and then that quality culture touches people, touches regional institutions, touches homes, and then it just starts to spread out of contagion.
I think one of the important elements within there has to be the capacity building as well, because quality promotions is developing, I think, just like everything else in our current online space. It's developing so rapidly, and the bureaus have to stay on top of the game a lot more now than they would have had to be previously, because it would have been a situation where you might have had an online presence, a website, but you made, add an article now and then here and there. But now, because information is so much more demanded and you have to stay on top of the game and keep your stakeholders so much more engaged now than you probably would have been before, or risk being left behind. That now you're also seeing that situation where at the national level, quality promotions also needs to be developed within the bureaus. That capacity also needs to be resourced and trained, just like any other social science, and as well as the practical science, because in the other technical areas of QID, the standards development, the metrology, the scientists are continually trained because things change so rapidly. And we're also now seeing the same thing happening in quality promotions, where the software is developing so quickly, where bureaus are realizing that they can do so much more, where there's so much more demand than there probably would have been before, because the markets themselves are changing. That it's also becoming a situation where, quality promotions is developing at a rapid pace and also needs that capacity development.
Yeah, what I think also too, if you look back into our history, the bureaus of standards, as they were formed out of our newly independent nations, those bureaus of standards who early o'clock joined ISO, the International Standards Organizations, were those bureaus that came from the more industrial markets of the 60s and 70s. So they had industry realized that it needed standards in these newly independent states with these bureaus, and then it kind of forced the bureaus to get involved in international affairs of standards development, which is ISO. And if you look at those early bureaus, when they got involved in ISO, I think they realized that they needed to each have a little department or a person dedicated to marketing and communicating what standards was about. And that was the first stage. But since the 60s and the 70s, it's only those 4 bureaus or so that came through the system today's date with dedicated personnel to do marketing and communication. And because they saw the value of it. But now that we have the other 10 bureaus in the region, a number of them are now beginning to employ, as of a few years ago, marketing and communications persons, because they realize now the value of quality, because they're getting more involved in more international fora where they're seeing these organizations having this resource, this human resource, this non-physical science-based resource. And also too, in the 21st century, a number of our member states started to become more industrialized, whether it was agro-processing, light assembly, and those things. So then the consciousness started to grow that having standards or measurement infrastructure or testing labs wasn't enough. We need to educate people to pull on these resources so we could lift our game and come out of this price competitive mode, because that's not a sustainable competitive advantage, is it?
Yeah.
Let's get more into quality competitiveness, because quality is something that is remembered long after the price is forgotten, and then that will last and create a more sustainable economy. So what we have been seeing at the regional level is that more and more of our bureaus over the last 10 years have actually started to employ marketing and communication officers, resourcing that to go out and host events, not only for the public, so you could create that demand pull of quality, but also to go to industry and convincing them or encouraging them to use standards and quality solutions more to compete. And then you're seeing this gradual lift. And now what we're doing with CROSQ and the bureaus, we're just building on that momentum and opening that up more in the economies, and therefore creating a wider quality consciousness in society and greater quality culture. And to us here, that's the value of quality promotions, this intangible science of how you can educate people formally or informally to do something continuously better every single day. So we decided in our region not to just define quality infrastructure by the physical sciences of chemistry, physics, biology, but also by the social sciences. That is, you define something according to how you're going to use it. Don't let others define your reality for you like how they knew it to be. And define your business by the need you serve and not just by the product you sell. The value is in the use, which is quality promotions, and not just in the product, with the physical sciences of chemistry, biology, and those kinds of things, and being able to measure that. So I think in the Caribbean, the group of bureaus of standards, along with the CROSQ Secretariat, has taken a brave leap in terms of adding quality promotions as a science in itself to the other sciences of standards, metrology, and conformity assessment. And I think it's good. We've also noted that in Africa, there is also beginning or has been a move to more raise the importance of quality culture development. As a developing world group of economies just like us. It's just unfortunate that the developed world has gone past that stage. So their societies are more sophisticated. The consumers know to buy on quality, and they have institutions that act as a barrier between industry, government, and academia and the public to ensure that quality is naturally delivered, whether you're looking for it or not. But we will get there. But in the time it's taken to get there, it becomes important for us to put a structure to this concept of quality promotions, and then to market and communicate quality infrastructure, educate people, give them the experiences of using quality. And that way we hope the public consciousness and the consumer consciousness raises to demand more quality from our industries and to buy on quality, and then our whole system of competitiveness raises, I think.
Which kind of brings me, I'm glad you went there, which kind of brings me to the last question I want to bring to the fore, which is the question of where do we go from here, or at least where do you see us in another 5 years? Because I know CROSQ just developed its new strategic plan. And within that strategic plan, there is a dedicated area for quality promotions and what quality promotions is supposed to do to develop QA at the national level and the regional level over the next 4 to 5 years.
Cool. So I think where we're going from here is that we are trying to encourage one or two of our key experts to undertake some dedicated studies to uncover the science of what quality promotions can be, and come up with a structure of how quality promotions is actually configured and the elements of which it comprises, and then use this scientific structure of conceptually what quality promotions looks like in any member state, and then research that to come up with the problems or the gaps in each of these areas of development, and then solutions. And then we could compare solutions to grow quality culture in each member state and converge these ideas and put together some structured programs that would be very directional as to specifically, if we do this, we know quality culture in this particular area will grow like this. And if we do this, we know quality culture will grow in this particular area. So I think the future for us is to develop a model, a scientifically robust socio-economic model of what quality culture looks like from a stakeholder perspective, the public perspective, academia perspective, industry perspective, government and policy perspective. We research that to understand what are the benchmarks or gaps, and then come up with ideas how to close those gaps in terms of quality consciousness so everybody understands this thing. And then we put that together in a structured program to grow it, So the future is, how do you move quality promotions from an informal sector to a formal sector? Because if you could formalize something, you can grow it. So I remember in a particular member state in the 80s, when there was a lot of economic depression and stuff like that, you found people going and collecting glass bottles very informally.
Okay.
And then they aggregating it by somebody's house. Then they put it in the back of a truck and carrying it to some of these glass manufacturers or reprocessing plants. And it was a very informal economy. And then the industry and the government got together and they started to organize that informal arrangement. And then they started to put a little structure to it, a little financial incentive to it. And then all of a sudden you saw business recyclings started to pop up at the SME level.
Yeah.
And because those businesses started to pop up at the SME level, government was able to assist more to create a better enabling environment for some of these SMEs to actually grow bigger and bigger. And then you got a whole new industry of recycling that not only was doing glass bottle recycling, but now also plastic bottle recycling. So I think the future for us is to find a couple of two willing experts who will undertake some projects, at the academic level and otherwise, to come up with a structure of what quality promotions is, really research it, and come up with a framework of how to convert this informal industry to a formal one. And then we will resource this formal industry to really create a quality conscious culture in our societies in a major way, because we could understand how it's structured and great. It's a religion, it's not a science.
I like it. I like the sound of that. And that brings us, folks, to the end of today's episode of the Quality Link. I would like to thank Mr. Deryck Omar, our guest, the CEO of the CARICOM Regional Organization for Standards and Quality, for joining us this month. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Latoya, for helping to also develop all this thinking. As a matter of fact, you could call this podcast the religion of quality.
All right.
Thanks very much.
Okay, guys, that's a wrap for today. We thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Quality Link. This has been a production of the CROSQ's Marketing, Information, Knowledge Management and Education Committee. Join us next time for another episode of the Quality Link.